Are you an uncle, Jaime?
I am not. I have no siblings, so it's not even possible.
Oh, okay. You are all by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I thought you had a brother or something.
No brothers, no sisters, no siblings of any sort.
That is amazing.
And was it everything that I've dreamt of?
What?
It's one of those weird things where it's like, I actually was really close with my cousins, still am, and so it's like pseudo brothers and sisters in that respect. But yeah, you do end up, getting all the stuff at Christmas, so there are benefits to being an only.
Wait, talk slowly. This is great.
Welcome to this podcast, Season 3, Episode 17. This week we're talking about Star Trek Discovery, Season 3, Episode 7, Unification 3. 37.
In a row?
Yeah, my name is Tim Mitchell, and I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined once again by Jonathan Kula in Mississauga, Ontario.
Hello there.
And we're also joined by Harmon Lopez Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
All right.
Seattle, home of the turkey, home of the unconscious.
Frackin'.
Jaime Lopez Jr.
Right. By the way, I was just watching, I was just thinking I got to send this over to Jaime, since he's a big Tim Hortons fan. There's a commercial that they ran last year, and they run it again this year, and it's Sidney Crosby at the drive-thru, and he's there with some other hockey player who I have no idea who it is. I'm sure Jonathan's going to,
Nate McKinnon.
His phone.
Nate McKinnon, captain of the Avalanche, yeah.
Oh, the Avalanche? So it's the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Colorado Avalanche? Anyway, they're at the drive-thru, and they're ordering, coffees and whatever, and hockey cards, because Tim Hortons gives away hockey cards now for $1 as well. And of course, the camera pulls away, they're driving a Zamboni through the drive-thru. So we'll have to send a link to you for that one, I made it, and for the show notes. Anywho, alrighty. No Stardate. We were talking about that just before the show. I just couldn't be bothered. And Stardate was confusing in this episode, which I'm sure Jonathan will cover when we get around to it on this episode of Lower Decks. So and you'll understand why I said that in a minute. But we don't have any fact check this week. This is really weird.
Oh, we're just that good.
No fact check? Are we sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we nailed it.
Oh, okay. We were perfection last week?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, unquestionably.
Alrighty. Well, let's just dig into the Disney Plus stuff. 18 plus, I should say.
All right. Well, put on your tinfoil hats, kids. This is time for Conspiracy Corner. So there is a YouTube video out there right now that purports to show the launch of a perhaps adjunct to Disney Plus, billing itself as Disney 18 Plus. And if you watch this video, which has been making the rounds this week, which has become a highly polarizing subject on a lot of different chat boards and blogospheres and all kinds of good stuff out there. If you watch the video that is contained inside, it purports to show a Disney Plus model app that contains a lot of the more mature side of the Disney properties. That is to say, a lot of the things they acquired from Fox. So things like Aliens and Terminator, I think, or Predator, I think, is in there. And it also shows some of the Marvel products in there. And it also shows what looks to be a release date on that for a Black Widow movie coming to that platform. Now, it should be said clearly and upfront that this is not in any way verified, in any way, shape, or form. It's purely...
and it's kind of shot on an angle, so it's kind of like, is it fake news or whatever? It's meant to be like somebody filming off of a television or
exactly
like a camera, a cinema shot, right, kind of thing. I have a question, though, so before we dig deep. So currently we can watch The Avengers on Disney Plus. Mm-hmm. Are there swears in The Avengers?
There are, I believe, at least a couple.
Right. Okay. So, and these movies like you mentioned, Predator and Terminators and Aliens and stuff like that, they're not available on Disney Plus right now?
They are not. Right. They have been acquired through that the purchase of all of the 20th Century Fox film and television assets that was made last year, but they've never been put on a platform like that.
But didn't Disney have like a wing like Touchstone or something like that, or the one that Spielberg publishes?
Well, yeah, they've got their own imprints that they could put stuff out on for distribution, but none of those have like a digital streaming venue. The closest thing they have is they have the controlling interest in Hulu now, because again, of that same acquisition, they control the voting interest in Hulu, so they could essentially run it. And so theoretically they can license that. And that's what they've done with some of their slightly more mature properties like The Runaways, Cloak and Dagger for the Marvel stuff. They put a few things on there, and they acquired all of Fox FX assets as well. And so they've started branding FX on Hulu as a brand now. So they're using a lot of the FX properties. So that would, I guess that would be like Sons of Anarchy and Archer, and there's lots and lots of stuff that's come out of there. So that they put it all out on Hulu because they wouldn't put anything of that within a 20-foot radius of the Disney Plus stuff. It's not the same audience. So the big question, I guess, is I've gone over lots of different things. There's a great Reddit page. Most people seem to think that this is an incredibly well done fake. Fake. But I thought it was worth raising because there is some logic to the idea of it. Whether or not this is a real thing, I guess now we can have a discussion. So what do you guys think? Is this fake or is this real? And either way, what do you think?
I could probably fake this video in like an hour. Like it wouldn't take me long. You basically do this like as a keynote or something like that on your Mac, stream it over to an HDMI TV, with the title sequence that they show at the very end there, and film it with my iPhone on a weird angle and not think twice about it. So yeah, highly improbable. I don't know. I don't see anything wrong with Disney having that kind of thing. I mean, if they want to keep their Tinkerbell kind of identity, clean, they could have Disney Plus. And as I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but like a lot of Amazon Prime, I think now, and I think Netflix, no, not Netflix, but Amazon, I think now has this, they've added channels to, and I think Apple TV does too. They've added channels to, like you can subscribe to channels like you do on cable, right? And so I would think I don't think it's unreasonable for Disney to sort of have another venue. I think Disney was early to the game with an app on iOS, right, and an Android, I believe, right, which I think became what we see on the Apple TV, and now I'm like, do you need a platform like Apple TV to watch Disney Plus, or does it run on can you put it on a smart TVs or like an app?
Yes, you can. As a matter of fact, I have it as an app on both of my smart TVs.
Okay, yeah. So I don't think it's unreasonable for Disney to have a way to show that kind of content, like maybe the Fox stuff you were talking about before. But whether I'm going to believe it or not for something that looks like a leaked video. That said, Jaime and I work in the mobile world, and we have a show where we discuss these kind of leaks every week, it seems, right? Especially leading up to big announcements, and some of them are like very credible, and they don't get all of they probably get like maybe 80% of the facts right, but there's always a surprise that Apple or Google slides in there that doesn't the leakers seem to miss, right? So it's almost like they're feeding the leakers a little bit just to keep everybody off the scent, right? What do you think, Jaime?
Yeah, in this one, I'm a little confused as to why the Disney 18 Plus wouldn't be a little bit more prominent. I think the idea is certainly interesting. I just assumed it'd go with Hulu as the co-branding of like, oh, just subscribe to one, you get both or something, right? At like $2 more or some other combined price. So I don't know. Maybe I want it to be a thing so that there is. So like as an example, I've not seen Hamilton because I haven't subscried to
You haven't seen Hamilton yet? I can't believe that.
No, because it's sometime in December, and I need to look at the calendar again to see when it was I figured out.
I'll let you in on the secret. I haven't seen Hamilton either.
Well, the thing I do know about it is that in the original play, there are 3 F-bombs, and they had to remove one of them so that it would still qualify for Disney Plus to be like PG-13 or something, I guess. So the concept of 18 Plus kind of makes sense for the things that just don't fit in there. I just have my doubts as to whether they'll throw them under a Disney branding and not just keep it as like Hulu or something. So I don't know. It was an interesting thing to look at. I was certainly watched it to see, does this seem legit? How does this make sense, sort of thing?
Yeah. What do you think about my theory about the fact that Apple is feeding the leakers some information?
That one I think does make sense. It seems like something your operational security folks should be doing to figure out, oh, there you go, that was the person who leaked it, right? right? Giving slightly different, unique data.
There's like a deep throat guy that meets people in the parking lots and says, the M1 is going to have like built-in RAM, and nobody saw the M1 coming, right? Like, I mean, for all the leakers that are out there, we did think. I guess we did know that they were working on their own chip, but anyway, let's stay on focus on sci-fi here for this show, I guess.
Well, for what it's worth, I don't think it's real either, but I think it opens an interesting discussion, which is what is going to happen with all those properties. And I think it'll be interesting to see how they do that, whether it's integrated into Disney Plus, whether Hulu becomes more global. It'll be interesting. And I do think one of the reasons why it resonated and one of the reasons why it sort of made the rounds so fast is that I think people have been waiting for the shoe to drop on something to happen with Black Widow, because it does not seem like it's going to go to the theaters anytime soon, even though it's still slated for spring. So we shall see, I guess.
Yeah, but the whole Marvel Universe people with their movies, they must be sitting on a big bag of cash too, though, right?
Well, again, it depends where the production, who put up the money for the production too, right?
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
we talked about that previously. Like, who's going to want their money back and how soon?
Yeah, interesting. Just on a sidebar there. So there's a movie called Who the Beep is Frank Zappa, which is coming out, and the guy from Bill and Ted, Alex, what's his name again?
Alex Winter.
I backed him 3 years ago on this thing. Like, it was sort of it was Save the Vault. Frank Zappa had all these tapes and recordings of his shows and movies and films in his basement, and like a huge house, though, don't get me wrong. So the idea was to save the vault and make this movie, and we all pitched in. Like, I pitched in $35, and like thousands of other, like tens of thousands of people also backed this thing up. And I was reading, it comes out tomorrow, actually, after like 4 years of production, and Alex Winter sent out an email the other day to the backers saying, people are saying, well, why can't we get the movie before it hits the public release and that kind of stuff? And turns out that he says in his explanation is that the money from the Kickstarter was to preserve the vault, to preserve these films and audio recordings and stuff like that. And the making of the movie was a different thing. In fact, it was shopped out by a production company, and they went and found all the backers. They went and did all the marketing. They had all the posters done, and they actually made the actual movie, even though he is quote unquote the director, I think, right? So it's interesting that we all think we're throwing money into this movie, but we're not actually throwing it into the movie. We were throwing it into the vault thing, and then him explaining how the actual movie hits the streets is a different story, right? Like he doesn't have the rights to distribute the movie, right? Because it's been paid for by somebody else, right? Mm-hmm. Kind of thing. It's just sort of an insider view of how we all wonder how these things happen. And like you said, with the Black Widow, it's who's paying for it is the one who's going to say how it comes out, right?
Exactly right. Yeah, there was a famous one from years gone by where Prince hired Kevin Smith, right? He talks about it in one of his Kevin Smith specials where he said, Prince said, hey, I want to work with you. So he flew up to Minnesota and did a bunch of filming for a week or two and was going to do this whole sort of special behind the scenes thing with Prince. And he got to the end of the project and they were like, yeah, he's just going to take that footage and he's going to put it in his vault and it may never see the light of day. And he's like, but I just came in here and worked on this. Like, what do you mean he's not going to show it? And he's like, well, it's his. And he has recorded hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of albums and never released them. He's recorded hundreds of videos and never released them. So, I think we might be seeing Prince albums from now until the end of our lifetimes because apparently it's all there. So,
Speaking of not owning stuff, can we talk about Dave Chappelle for a minute?
Yeah, good story, eh?
Yeah, so Jaime and I were kind of... were we talking about this yesterday, Jaime? I can't remember.
I think it came up in After Show.
After Show, yeah. So the Netflix thing, two things. Well, I'll come back to this thing I put in the fact check, but so I saw a post on Twitter the other day, on Facebook the other day, and it was misspelled, and I couldn't understand what it was saying, but because I was watching Netflix stuff, because I'm off this week, and I was, killing some time and catching up on things, and I noticed that the Chappelle Show was on Netflix, and because I had just watched his two specials that I watched one of the two specials that he posted on Netflix recently, right? And then there was an interview with him and Dave Letterman as part of the Dave, your next guest needs no introduction show that
Letterman that was does, great. Right? I love that interview.
Yeah, so it's so insightful, eh? But I learned a ton about David Chappelle. Even the what was the one, the Mark Twain Award one was good. I watched.
Oh that. Yeah.
Very insightful.
Very cocky in that one too.
Yeah, but but it was interesting to sort of hear whether the stuff is all literally true or not, but the backstories behind people's relationship with him, like, and working with him and that kind of thing. Especially the guy he did the Chappelle Show with was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden I heard a rumor that Chappelle Show was getting pulled from Netflix, and then I saw a note from Dave Chappelle saying, please don't watch this because I'm not getting paid for it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So over to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really interesting move. I mean, obviously his specials and his stature on Netflix has been a huge boon for both of them. His career has resurged in a huge way, and also they've benefited immensely from his presence there. And the fact that he has the clout and the be able to do that, to be able to say, hey, I'm not getting paid for this, would you guys take this down? And that they said yes is pretty remarkable, because it's unclear as to whether they're like, that's sunk, right? They would have spent the money on that. His argument was basically they own the rights to it. They can sell it to whoever they want, but if I'm not seeing a dime,
right?
Yeah. Well, it's is it Viacom? I can't remember who the parent company for Comedy Central is, but yeah, he was saying that these people can go out, license it to whomever they want, but if I'm not seeing any money, then like what's there's no artistic value to that anymore, right? It's basically, it just becomes screw the artists, and now it's all just about money, and and they took it down. It's pretty shocking.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually thinking, hey, I could watch that, because I didn't see it when it was on the air. I think I caught maybe a couple of episodes, but never really watched. And I know it's one of your favorite shows, right?
I love it. I've loved it since day one. I don't know if it's still there, but I know it was available on Crave as recently as
really?
a couple of weeks ago. I have it on DVD from way back in the day. You can get it on iTunes. I know that. So, but again, the iTunes, I don't know if there's a monetization in there for Dave, or if he gets a percentage or something. And I don't know what kind of deal would have been struck to put it on Crave, whether or not that was something that was made as a money-making opportunity for him as well. So interesting to know all the logistics of that, but it's a huge step forward in artists trying to be treated fairly for the art that they create.
Right. Well, I mean, because I think like a lot of artists in the 60s, musicians and stuff, there's plenty of stories about artists and child actors and movie stars who got into bad contracts, and because they were just starstruck at the whole idea, and not realizing that this little thing that they were doing was worth so much money to somebody else, right?
Well, even look at we had a recent one where Taylor Swift has been fighting because the rights to her masters have been going around like hotcakes, right? People have been buying them and trading them and selling them, and she keeps saying, well, but it's my work. I want to preserve the integrity of that, and people are like, no, it's a commodity. It's a valuable commodity. We can license your work.
The spice. It's the spice, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, but it is. It's it's a strange place to be where the artists don't control their art, right?
Right. Yeah, you used to have to kill the artist before you could sell his paintings and stuff. Right? I mean, the art world has been like that forever. I mean, they used to always say that once an artist dies, he can no longer produce paintings, and therefore the paintings he made in his lifetime, provided they're qualified as capital A art, then they shoot up in value. And if you look at the selling of Picasso and Van Gogh and those kind of guys, they're like worth millions and millions, ridiculous amounts of money. Professional sports players couldn't even afford to buy them. That's how ridiculously high they get priced.
No, but the guys who pay them their salaries can.
Right, that's true. Yeah. So it's kind of ridiculous at that level. But anyway, do you have anything to add to the Chappelle story, Jaime? Sorry.
The only sort of take I had on it was that for folks who are a little confused, I don't think there was any sort of legal reason why Netflix needed to remove it. I'm not even sure they removed it out of the goodness of their hearts, but rather the fact that Dave Chappelle has a really good, solid relationship with them, and if he's inclined to want something a certain way, I think I would make him happy too, right? I'm sure it was not an easy decision for them, but it sort of seems to make economic sense for Netflix.
To me, it's kind of a junior executive move to put it on. Like they just inked this deal with him with 2 specials, right? Which he's just done within this year. And then when you consider that there's not a lot of fresh stuff being made, and also the fact that this Mark Twain special came out, and the fact that he's on the Letterman interview, right? It's kind of like, hey, we should, like, they're doing that right now with Princess Diana, right? If you watch The Crown, if you didn't know about the story about Diana Spencer or Lady Diana, Duchess of Windsor, you can now watch. There's an interview of her in her own words. There's another one about the story of Diana. Like, they kind of just drag all these old tapes out that look, we found this one in the vault, literally, and put it up on the show. And it's kind of like, I think that somebody somewhere, someone said, hey, here's something, let's keep the eyeballs on the screen by throwing up the Chappelle Show, right? And I could see that being totally something they would do. I don't think that, because they must have had to go pursue and have long arrangements with Dave to talk about these specials that he's done for them, or maybe he may have done the specials not intending to put them on Netflix, and they may just shop them around and Netflix came to the table, kind of thing, right? But yeah, I think that I could see why they took it down, because obviously they've got this hot property and they're promoting it and they put a lot of marketing behind it, right? You would think, and especially since he's been promoting it as well, right? The kind of add-on, the affinity connection or the affinity link or whatever we call it in web development, where you have something that's kind of related, like purchasers also looked at this show, kind of thing, that they do. That I think that was sort of how that got rolled into the queue, right? So, and I could see that that's maybe why it would have been easier to take it down. Maybe it was sort of a an also ran kind of idea, right?
Yeah, well, it's the old adage, right? You don't eat the golden goose, you wait for it to lay more golden eggs.
Yeah, exactly. Or strike while the iron's hot. He's a hot property, so maybe you roll out his other stuff too. Anyway, let's move on back. Let's go back to the show. Let's go back to
show.
What we're talking about. Yeah.
All right. Last week we talked about Wonder Woman 1984 and the fact that it's going to HBO Max as well as theaters on Christmas Day. So the question was, what does this mean for Canadian audiences? Because we don't have HBO Max as an option. And we speculated, well, is it going to be just in the theaters? Is there going to be somebody else who picks up the streaming rights? How is that going to be made available? Well, the good folks at CBC, specifically David Friend, it's a Canadian press story, so run by the CBC. Canadian press story, David Friend wrote a story where he spoke to a representative from Warner Brothers, and they confirmed that it is only going to be available in movie theaters effective December 25th in Canada. There is no streaming partnership. It will not be airing here. The coda to his story says, a representative for Crave says that while a deal wasn't struck to bring Wonder Woman 1984 to the platform during its theatrical run, the film, quote, will stream on Crave following its standard theatrical window. So, ballpark, that's usually 3 to 4 months. I don't know if that's changed to the window that has shrunk because of the COVID pandemic, or if this is standardized. So we may not be able to see it outside of the theater here legally here in Canada until March, April, May, who knows? Unless you're willing
serving barbecue with it when you go to the theater to watch it.
Yeah, unless you're willing to go to a movie theater, and that is pretty disappointing. The fact that a property like that obviously has a lot of interest. I had fully intended to go see it, Tim. I'm sure you did too. We enjoyed the last one. I think it was going to be something that was, sought out, but there's no world in which I am going to a movie theater in December of 2020. There's no world that's happening.
That's true. Yeah.
One, all the movie theaters in my area are closed. Two, any movie theaters are still open are still going to be very, very potentially, dangerous places to be. You are putting yourself at risk in an area in this area of Ontario where we have a very high concentration of COVID cases. It is a risk, and it's not a risk that I feel is worth taking. Some people will feel differently, and hopefully everything will work out for them. But to have that be the only option on the table, especially when they've gone out of their way to have that option be something different for our American friends, is very disappointing.
Well, but like we said it on this show before, if you want to see this movie in a reasonable amount of time, you're going to see it.
Yep.
I mean, wake the F up, people who market this stuff.
All they've done is basically alienate a large number of, it's all relative. Canada is a flea speck for worldwide box office. United States, China, overseas, Canada is a blip. We're small. There's not a lot of us. Fair enough. So maybe they don't care if they're pissing us off. That seems to be the general vibe coming from down south anyways. But But at the same time, that's not nothing. You're still probably going to lose, hundreds of millions or 100 million in potential box office or potential whatever that is. So I don't know. To me, it just seems, I'm sure there's logistical problems. I'm sure there's concerns. But yeah, the number of people who are interested in this, who are going to illegally view this based on the fact that it won't be available to watch within the safe confines of your own home until spring is very high. There will be casual people, which you could make an argument that that's where a lot of film goers are. They're just, hey, somebody looking for something to do on a Friday night, and they're not the hardcore moviegoers like you and me and others. I just think they're going to lose a lot of potential earnings by this kind of decision.
Yeah, that's true.
And what if it sucks? Seriously, what if it sucks?
Well, so
then nobody's going to want to go see it anyways. Like, I don't think it will.
Is, I want to see what the tenant numbers are. Like, what were? I mean, like that's the thing. Like what could, if it was not a pandemic world, what would Tenet possibly have made? I mean, I guess you could compare other movies that like Interstellar, and things like that, like movies like that. Dunkirk, or even didn't he do one of the comic book movies?
Well, Batman, he did 3 Batman movies. Those made movies, crazy money, but then all perspective.
So yeah, and Wonder Woman's been a big hit. Like it was kind of, it sort of had its. I think it's comparable in a sense to Black Panther in terms of the fact that they thought, oh, nobody's going to watch this movie. The white executives in the boardrooms making those decisions, and yet Black Panther was amazing, right? Mm-hmm. And it had an amazing impact and influence on people, especially who want to see themselves on the screen, if you know what I mean. And the same thing with Wonder Woman, right? The original Wonder Woman movie was I mean, Wonder Woman TV show in the 70s and 80s was it was popular. It was like one of the top shows at the time, but it hasn't been in syndication forever, like you would think, right? But it's kind of foolish not to. I mean, well, so let's be realistic. They probably asked a big dollar for it.
Oh yeah,
and there isn't a Canadian streaming service that was willing to take it on, right?
Yeah, at the cost that they would have had to put into it. I'm sure that's why Crave didn't do it. They couldn't reach an agreement as a coded way of saying we didn't want to spend whatever it was, $80 million, whatever they wanted for it.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
To me, it just seems, it makes sense. I get they would have crunched all the numbers. They would have figured it all out. They would have figured, okay, if we don't do this in Canada, if we only go this route, this is how much money we're going to not make. They've crunched it 6 ways from Sunday. They know that this is the best way to monetize what they have. And as we talked about last week, and we have the Jaime Lopez Juniors of the world who are going to pay the 1 month subscription, right? They're going to get the subscription in December and they're going to watch it. But sure, that's what they want.
This is coming out on Hulu. Oh, HBO Max, right?
HBO Max, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. So Jaime's all set. He's got his credit card ready and.
All right. Trying to figure out how best to do that, because the thing that threw a little bit of a wrench in the works is, so I'm a YouTube TV subscriber, and for reasons unclear to me, we're getting this holiday weekend free HBO Max through YouTube TV. And so we've said, maybe we need to work down whatever we possibly can in the binge list, binge through, which might change the timing for Wonder Woman 1984 of like, oh, maybe I don't do it on Christmas Day. Maybe I do it towards the tail end of that month that it's available, to see if I can squeeze my way into Justice League, assuming it launches relatively soon in the new year.
You're so honest in the United States, I'm telling you.
So can I ask you guys a theoretical question, where this is a purely theoretical exercise, and I'd like it very clear that this is a theoretical exercise. If I were an American citizen, say if I were living in Seattle, and let's
not point fingers at Jaime. Why don't you say El Paso instead?
Oh, El Paso, that's a good one. If I was living in El Paso, for example, and I had a VPN that could basically say that I'm in Canada, could I then watch Crave from El Paso?
I suppose so. Yeah. I mean, just given the behavior that I saw when I went to the United Kingdom, I remember thinking, what the heck? When did Discovery end up on Netflix? Oh, wait, this Netflix is all weird and wacky, and it has none of the things I would recognize, and realized that just being in that area, they said, oh no, you get to see this Netflix, which made no sense. I was like, why would you choose a Netflix based on where I'm currently at, not where my subscription is from?
Oh, I see what you mean. You dialed into your Netflix and that's what you got.
Yeah,
because you were doing a local dial-in, right? Now, you weren't using a VPN to say that you were somewhere else. You were saying you were in the UK.
I was physically in the UK, and it decided, oh yeah, you get to see this one. Then I was like, well, why though? You know it's an American account. Why did you just show me my American content?
So continuing that thought, if I happen to be, for example, a Canadian living in, I don't know, let's say Brampton, and I had a friend who had an American HBO Max account, and I turn on my VPN and say, hey, I happen to be in Chicago, could I then watch HBO Max?
Yes.
I think so.
In theory.
I think so.
In theory, that would work,
it seems
right?
to be based on the, as silly as it sounds, the physical perimeter of where your internet is at.
So what I just figured out is we just found a way to get socialized science fiction to Jaime.
This episode brought to you by Tunnel Bear.
We do these
Not really.
We do these FaceTime calls on this regular basis. People are just like, hey, get out of the back row.
You
can just have a WebEx call and Jaime can share his screen.
Yeah, exactly.
That's simple, right?
Yeah. No, again, to me, some of the stuff just doesn't make sense. Like the internet has allowed for the destruction of borders. There are no borders anymore. Like that's the nonsensical part of all this. There are no borders. Borders are made up things. They always have been. Now they're even more so. There is a whole global community online that is nothing to do with borders anymore. So why do people think that they can do things like, put something out in a theater or one place and put it on a streaming channel someplace else and not think that those things are antithetical?
I'd have to guess that there's like some weird movie theater conglomerate in Canada that fights this stuff tooth and nail because
we have a thing called the CRTC, which basically governs what can be broadcast and streamed in Canada, right?
Sure. Yeah, it's like the FCC in the States.
Yeah, and they have a similar thing in the States. Yeah. So there are, I'm going to say government entities, for lack of a better word, that think that the physical border can control the digital border. And we all know it can't, right? At least the people on this show know it can't.
But I'm trying to follow the money. I'm like, how do they get money? I mean, sure, they get some prestige and maybe they have, passionate lovemaking with their spouse when they've declined something that screws over Canadians, right? It just gives them a power trip. But assuming that's not a factor, there must be this conglomerate of theater owners in Canada who know that Canadians just order an unholy amount of popcorn and soda or something, and they're missing out on that sweet money if they don't have even a minuscule number of people sitting butts in theaters.
Did you ever watch the X-Files?
Mm-hmm.
Did you watch the X-Files when it was on?
Yeah, with Mulder and Scully, yeah.
Well, the smoking man and the guys he used to meet with in the suits and stuff like that, and they would do all the backroom plotting.
Yeah.
Right? That's the guys that are trying to control this stuff.
Sure, I totally believe it. I feel like it's not that far away from that. So I don't know. I mean, this seems like a slam dunk for you all. You're sitting in the same pandemic situation we are. I would say the argument for the money's not that much is it will be even smaller in theater. Why don't you just make the easy thing of just throw it on the interwebs, and its marginal cost distribution is zero to get it to however many of the 30 million people who live in Canada will watch.
See, this is where you have companies like Apple but even Apple Canada and Apple US, they serve different content, but that's where you get these companies like Apple and HBO and places like that and Disney Plus that put these shows out there so that people can enjoy them irregardless of what board. Is that right? A word? Irrespective of what. I think irregardless actually got put in the dictionary last year.
It did, and it makes me want to kill myself. Cringe. So let's not use that one.
So irrespective of your physical location, you can watch. Like we can all sit down and watch Mandalorian. Well, some of us can watch Mandalorian tomorrow night, right? But you know what I mean. Like it doesn't matter if I'm in the U.S. or in Canada. I still get to watch that movie. So it just curdles my corn to think that these, like you said, these people think they can control how we consume media. It's ridiculous, right?
Yeah. Well, and again, all they're doing is fostering what the internet is notorious for, which is people behaving badly. Well, then give us the right options. You and I...
People would pay you. People would pay you the money.
Well, we talked about it before. Again, put it on VOD up here at the same time. Wonder Woman's going to be a big flick. Put it on somewhere where I can pay whatever you guys think is a fair amount. Is $20? Is $25? Again, I'd pay far more than $25 for Xavier and I to go see it. If I paid $25 and we could sit down in there on the sofa and watch it
and have it for 48 hours
hours and watch it once or twice, I would. And you know what's better than that? We'd talk about it on our effing podcast. To me, it just seems like you're cutting off your nose to spite your face, and the whole thing just seems like an antiquated notion. It really does feel like, the last of the buggy whip makers. They're just like, oh no, these are projects are going to sell like hotcakes. Like, nobody needs them anymore. There are cars.
Anyway, well, on that note, so we've got we're like an hour into this almost.
You're going to have to go real fast through the rest of these to get to the recap.
A whole bunch of stories to whip through. So I just want to call something back into the fact check because Jaime mentioned last week, we sort of do follow up on more than just codes. That's why I'm kind of thinking of this way. But I noticed when I was flipping on Netflix this week, and maybe last week, there was a little icon that said play something or something like that. Like, you remember you were talking about they reinvented broadcast TV?
Mm-hmm.
Where, yeah, so I haven't tried it yet, but I think if you push that button, you randomly get something to watch. Have you seen this on your Netflix, Jonathan?
Yeah, I saw it come up actually this week, and I think that's the notion. Is basically it's like surfing channels, right? You press it and it basically picks something for you. I don't know if it picked based on your tastes or if it just picks something at random.
Maybe it's like Giphy. You have to type in a word and it does an association thing.
Yeah,
because you have like 3 or 4 things to choose. Anyway, I just thought it was interesting that button that we were talking about, I think a mere week ago or 2 ago, has kind of surfaced on Canadian Netflix. I don't know if you see that on your Netflix, Jaime?
I haven't seen it yet on mine. Maybe they're rolling it out a little bit by bit.
Yeah, we're the beta testers, I think, up here in Canada, right? Small market.
Yeah, they often do things up here because, there's just not enough of us to worry about.
And it's not like we have podcasts where we can discuss it with our American friends, right? So
yeah, nothing like that.
Yeah. All
right. Next up, there is a bit of a dispelling of a Disney Plus series. So Tatiana Maslany, the Canadian actress, famously Orphan Black, has come out and denied that she is going to be She-Hulk. We talked about this a few episodes back, that she had been cast as She-Hulk in a Disney Plus series, and I think a lot of people were pretty on board with that. She's a very talented actress, but she came out this week and she said it's funny to even acknowledge because it isn't actually anything. She said, I've done all kinds of different things. I've got other projects in the fire, irons in the fire, but no, nothing. So, I guess it's back to the drawing board for Disney, but also kind of disappointing. I think she would have been good.
Mm-hmm. I don't know enough about the character to really say yay or nay. I thought it was personally, I thought it was an odd thing for her to do, especially after the success of Orphan Black, I think she won awards for 3 or 4 years in a row.
Yeah, she definitely won a bunch of different things for that and was very well regarded for it. It's, it's interesting that she has, but I mean, it was reported quite a while back. I can't recall off the top of my head, but I think it was maybe in summertime we were talking about this.
No, it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah,
maybe 3 episodes ago. We do have a vehicle we can check, but
fact check. What? That's crazy.
Anyway, we could scroll through the notes and look for it. But anyway, all right, let's move over to Jaime and his big news.
Yeah, after the passing away of Chadwick Boseman, we were wondering what was going to happen with the Black Panther franchise, and apparently it's moving forward in 2021. It's going to start filming, apparently in Atlanta in July, and they're saying that Shuri is going to have a bigger role, which I was not aware. It seemed like she had the Black Panther mantle at some point in the comic books. So
she did in the comics, yes.
Yeah. So I guess it would make sense.
Is this his sister character?
Yes. Yeah, the one that basically the Tony Stark of Wakanda sort of thing. Maybe she had all the technology.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they resolve that. I think recasting would be very challenging, although I don't think it's out of the question. We've already had some recastings in the Marvel Universe. We've had 3 different actors play the Hulk. We've had, different actors play War Machine. Recasting happens in different circumstances. We've never really had anybody do that because of somebody passing away. But obviously these things happen over the years. We saw it, the Harry Potter movies famously, right? The guy who played Dumbledore died after the first 2 movies, and they had to cast
Richard Harris.
Person. Yeah, so Richard Harris died, so they had to cast Richard Gambon or Michael Gambon. So these things happen, but I do think it would be a very interesting and progressive step forward to move that mantle to her. I just wonder if logically you need to cast someone as T'Challa to have that seem like a logical and organic thing, or if it would just seem, it's complicated. I don't think you want to kill off T'Challa necessarily. He's a very popular character, and of course, while Chadwick Boseman's performance as the character is iconic, I don't think that means they want to just stop using that character. That being said, I think the idea of putting Shuri in the starring role and making a franchise around a smart young Black woman is amazing. Yes, please do that. So yeah, absolutely. I think that's worthwhile doing. I just wonder if you can do that in a logical way. It seems like quite the quite the puzzle for the writers to have to work through.
Well, do you know what? It's almost like I think we understand that, you know, life is like what it is, and sometimes you have to recast a character because a person dies, right? I mean, I think we understand that. Like recasting of Hulk, always to this day, I'm still thinking, Ed who? You know, like that was an odd sort of. It's almost like three different characters to me. Like, even though the big green guy is always a big green guy, but you know, I like Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk, and I liked Banner as the Hulk as well. But yeah, to do they did two movies and then they put Ed Norton in there?
Well, they did the Ang Lee movie, they did, and that one is technically not part of the MCU, but then the Incredible Hulk movie they did with Edward Norton is part of the MCU movie franchise, but they deliberately do sort of reference that Ang Lee version without actually getting into it. So there seems to be a connection between them, but I think it's left in the eye of the beholder to decide if that was real.
Yeah, it's like Klingon foreheads, you know, like it just makes you go crazy sometimes, right? But from a consistency, so I think you know, if they just brought another actor in and he's T'Challa and they don't say anything about it, I mean, I think people would be fine with that, because everybody, I mean, people, unless you've been living under a rock and you don't know that Chadwick Boseman had passed away, people are okay with just, okay, this is the new Bond, right? Okay, we have a new Bond, right? You know, it's like, I don't think you have to make a big deal. I don't think you have to write a plot about, you know, he has to go away on a, you know, for a family emergency or whatever excuse they want to make up, you know, to sort of slide her into the role. You know, he gets a tummy ache or something and can't go on a mission or whatever, you know, like, I'm sorry, that's going to make it worse. I think people know that Black Panther, if it's going to continue as a franchise, it has to have a new actor. I mean, how many Batmans have we had? How many Supermans have we had? You know, how many Spider-Mans have we had? It's like,
yeah, but how many of those actors died? Like, none.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But you did bring up Richard Harris and Michael Gambon. I mean, that's an unfortunate series of events too. But that you know, that's how they have to keep dealing with that. I mean, they meant to do 7 movies and they did, or 8 movies. I guess they stretched it out to 8. But
well, it's always the risk, right? Things happen, accidents happen. You know, people die, old age happens. Like, yeah.
Well, we say the same thing with M's character and Q's character. You know, like in the Bond movies as well. I mean, I think if you try and write your way around it, it's just going to ruin it. You know, I think it's just going to be like a bad situation. I think just bring another actor out, put him in the suit, you know, do the thing, and we'll just roll with it, right?
Yeah. Are you on board for a recasting?
Yeah, I wasn't thinking recast. I was thinking they were going to go the Carrie Fisher route of shots from behind and audio that they took somewhere else, sort of thing, right? For the Rise of Skywalker, in case folks haven't seen it.
I think they actually have explicitly already said they won't do that.
Have you seen, speaking of that, have you seen the deep fake versions of Princess Leia?
Like for Rogue One?
You know, yeah. They did with a number of people, because, you know, they animated her in Rogue One and Peter Cushing, right?
Yep.
But somebody's done a deep fake using footage of Carrie Fisher from her life and then putting it into the computer and re-rendering those scenes with a Carrie Fisher deep fake. And the deep fakes look better than the failed attempts at animation, right? Because they look more like the actual person, right? It's really amazing stuff. And there's a few of them. There's deep fakes where they have Kirk and William Shatner and Chris Pine as Kirk, and Zachary Quinto and Leonard Nimoy as Spock, and they redo the new J.J. Abrams scenes, you know, using this amalgam of the two actors, and it's like one second it's William Shatner, the next second it's like Chris Pine. It's very strange, but I was watching something the other day with I'll have to find a link now for the show notes with Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia in one of them. Really amazing. Anyway, the next sidebar is, did you know that Gambon Corner on what was that show with the car racing guys?
Top Gear.
Top Gear, yeah. Gambon Corner on Top Gear is named for Michael Gambon. Did you know that?
Did he crash there?
No, I think he's the first one to do a 3-wheel turn.
Oh.
That's why they named it after him. That's why they call it Gambon Corner.
Nice.
Yeah, because I mean, every car, is it what the reasonably priced car that they
yes.
all drive, right? Yeah, I think he was the first one to sort of take that corner in a real sort of reckless manner, and that's why they named it after him.
Nice.
Anyway, I'm sure Xavier knows that. Come on.
I'm sure he does. He's seen almost every episode of that series.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. Well, so I've got a couple of things here, and it was interesting. I saw these on Twitter because the badges have always been fascinating for this show, and because I actually bought a Discovery badge when they first came out, and then there was the Black series. What were they called? The Black Division.
Section 31.
No, the black ones that they did. The secret agent guys that in the first or second season. Anyway, they had those badges, and they made those up as the same company made those ones up too. But now we have a new badge style, right? And if you look at this picture that's on this tweet, the badges are it's sort of a combination of. If you look at the badge, it still sort of has the Starfleet sort of triangle-y looking thing, but it also has little pips along the one side, along the left side, and the pips indicate your rank, right? Similar to the pips in the Next Generation, right? And looking at those pips, and they there's like commander, captain, lieutenant commander, first lieutenant, lower lieutenant, whatever, different ranks. And we were discussing last week, and of course we'll spoil this for ourselves in a minute, about who would take on the number one role, and we put forth Lieutenant Nilsson. But according to the pips that they wear on the show, Nilsson, Reese, and Detmer are all full lieutenants, whereas Tilly is she's an ensign, isn't she?
She's an
Didn't we
ensign.
say last week? Yeah. So she's even lower than that. So there are some people on the show. I forgot the names of the ones that are not full lieutenants, but so these technically would, in terms of who can be promoted to the level, would be the candidates that should be chosen for the number one role. Basically because of their and Data was a lieutenant commander. That's higher than a lieutenant, right?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. So and Riker was a commander as well, right?
He was. Yep.
Commander Riker. Anyway,
but then I think technically though, I think that was the distinction, right? Because he was a commander, but he's also a commander and number one. I think equal rank though. I think the Doctor is also a commander, and I think Troy at one point becomes a commander as well, right?
Right. Yeah.
So they all have the same rank. It's just a question of who's the second in command.
Right. Yeah, because I think the Doctor and Troy both take a shot at driving the ship at one point, right? Like sitting in the chair. Right?
Oh, you mean crash landing it?
Well, no. I think it's interesting that you say that, because I read something the other day about that. It was in defense of Troy, that it wasn't so much that she crashed the ship; she landed the ship.
Did she? Detmer landed the ship. Troy crashed the ship.
Okay, well, Detmer kind of crashed it too, right? It needed
Does
help.
the ship still fly?
after Burnham picked it up with the tractor beam, yeah. So it was very much like the Mandalorian ship in the last two episodes ago.
Oh yeah.
Anyhow, more spoilers for Jaime, poor guy.
Oh jeez.
Anyway, so this brings us to the part of the show where we talk about Star Trek Lower Decks. Unification III. No, it's Lower Decks. Come on. You saw the episode. Tell me that wasn't a Lower Decks episode.
All right.
Come on.
A little bit.
Half of the show was Lower Decks. Okay. Anyway. So Star Trek Discovery Season 3 episode. What episode we had?
7.
7. Thank you very much. Unification 3. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when we were doing, I think we had a spoiler section where we talked about the namings of the episodes. And I don't know why we thought this would be about Vulcan and the Romulan empires, merging together in a sort of unification kind of storyline. But there you have it. I'm going to shut up now. I'm going to pass it over to Jonathan, who is going to do the recap for this week's show.
And here we go. So yeah, Unification 3. So obviously we knew that there was going to be some good stuff in here in a meaty episode, and damned if we didn't get that. So we start off with Burnham, and she's talking to her personal log, and she's talking about her fixation on the burn. We knew that we had left her in that very introspective place where she disobeyed Saru last week and went off on the mission to go find the black box, and that she had obviously been stripped of her role as number one because of that behavior. And she's talking about how, maybe this isn't the place for her. Maybe, her fixation on the burn and her, sort of unease at being back in uniform and back aboard the ship and following rules. Just maybe it's time for her to think about a different path. And we're reinforced in that when the very next scene she's lying naked in bed with Book. And the two of them are talking, and I just want to point out that really pimped out room that he's got. That was fantastic. The super decked out wood wooden headboard and the whole nine. Yeah, that was fantastic. So yeah, she basically is, she's talking with him and she's saying the same thing. And I'm not sure what to do. I don't know where I belong. I don't know what's going to happen from here. And, we're sort of left in that same place of, well, what is this all going to mean for Burnham? We then cut to Tilly, who is, busy working away. And, Burnham comes in and they have sort of a bit of a confrontational moment. We obviously talked about that last week as well, that Tilly had said to Saru pointedly, you got to throw Burnham under the bus. She deserves to be under that bus. She made her own bed. She deserves to be there. And, the defense that Burnham gives to, a bit of a dressing down from Tilly is, well, I had to go. I had to, which is debatable. That's in her mind that she had to. But she says, no, I had to. And Tilly sort of, okay, she sort of tries not to dwell on it. She says, okay, well, let's focus on this. So she's talking about the burn and they're running the data on the black boxes. And she says, you were right, by the way. We've got the results from the two first black boxes. We got it from the USS Yelchin. Wonderful little hat tip to Anton Yelchin, who played Chekhov in the new Kelvin timeline movies, who unfortunately passed away at the age of 27 a few years ago. And we are also talking about the Govnor. And she says, you were right. There's 1/1,000,000th of a microsecond difference between when they both went offline. And
nobody's noticed this so far?
And well, because they didn't have those black boxes, right?
Oh, okay, right.
It's because she found those. She's the one that found those black boxes, Burnham. So Tilly reveals to her as well that there's this thing called the SB19 sensors that are spread across dozens of light years of subspace, and that, maybe that could help them triangulate where this burn would have come from if they have a third point of triangulation. And it would save them having to scour lifetimes worth of empty space trying to find this place. But unfortunately, these results are not public. Then they get the ping as the computer finishes doing its processing, and it's the results from this last black box they've got, which is the Gianconi, and it is 7/1,000,000th of a microsecond difference after the Yelchin. And so therefore they know that this is clearly something that was a cascade. It wasn't something that happened simultaneously. It's something that actually spread out through space. And so they go and see Vance, the admiral, and they are, trying to plead their case. They've got Saru. They're trying to figure out, like, okay, so, we've got these 3 points. What Burnham did last week is quote unquote justified because now she's got this new data. And they say, well, what do you know about SB19? And he says, well, yeah, that's a Navarre project. And they say, Navarre, what's Navarre? And they say, well, actually, you probably know it from its former name, Vulcan. And Navarre is the name that Vulcan has gotten now that it is a unified planet of Romulans, Vulcans, and the merging of those two cultures. And that we also find out that they have left the Federation a century ago. We also find out that Navarre contributed the SB19 transportation system due to the shortage of dilithium that was supposed to be this great way for people to sort of use the subspace network and get from place to place. But they had reservations about it and they wanted to kill it. The Federation said, no, this is the most promising thing we have to replace dilithium. Let's keep using it. And then they think that they caused the burn, but they blame the Federation for forcing them to keep it going. And that's what led to the dissolution of their relationship. Burnham says, we got to go. We got to show them this evidence. We got to try and convince them that if they give us their data, that, we can absolve them of this. We know that it wasn't their fault. We know it wasn't there. And Vance says, okay, fine. Then let's send them Spock's sister, because then maybe they'll listen to you. So then we get a very sort of sweet scene where Burnham decides to actually look up her brother and figure out what was his life like. And we get a little hollow image of Leonard Nimoy as Spock doing part of the scene from Unification Part 2. Way back when in, gosh, what year was that? 91? 91?
Long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. And of course she's rolling tears. She's so touched by the fact that her brother went on to this very illustrious career, that he went on to do great things and book as a matter of fact, makes a crack about that, sort of says, geez, you guys are just a family of overachievers. My goodness. Like, you saved the galaxy. This guy unified the Romulans and the Vulcans. Like, it's a really good little point to have Book be the one to point that out. We then cut to a scene between Saru and Tilly, and Saru is talking about how, he had to, strip Burnham. He didn't have a choice. He had to strip Burnham of her role as number one. And so he offers the role of interim number one to Tilly, which kind of surprised me. I got to admit, I was, I think it was a little bit telegraphed, but also still, like we talked about last week.
Yeah, we thought it would be like a dispensable character.
Yeah, we didn't think it would be somebody who was going to, have long-term ramifications. We thought it was just going to be a seat filler, but yeah, big deal. And a good conversation there. She says, is this because I'm compliant? Is this because I'm going to do what I'm told? And he says, you're going to put the best interests of Starfleet and Federation ahead of your own, and that's what I need right now, and that's what the ship needs right now. And it's true. And, from the second episode of the season where she accompanies him on the mission on the planet where they crash land, she has been a very much changed and more sort of formidable character. And she has been very, forthright, and she has adapted better than, we've seen obviously some of the other characters. We've seen Detmer, we've seen, Stamets, and some of the other characters struggling through this, new world and the new reality. And she has been kind of a rock, which is, it's all fair and valid. So she's now sort of struck, and he says, well, you don't have to decide right away. Take a day and go think about it. Then we go to our Black Alert, and Stamets uses his new goo to transport them. The effect seemed to change. Did you guys pick that up? It wasn't the the ship where it does that thing where it's falling and then twists around.
Yeah,
it just sort of zooped through space, which I don't know if I feel better or worse about that.
I'll have to look at that. I thought it was still doing the same action. They just shot it from a different angle.
Maybe that's what it was. It just, to me, it seemed like, because it looked like it came out of this sort of portal in space in a different way. It didn't just sort of materialize the same way it had before. But it's worth watching again. And sure enough, they end up right outside of Navarre, which is, of course, the former Vulcan. And there the president, Tarina, appears and, aboard the bridge. And she says, basically, we don't want to release the data. We don't want to reopen old wounds. And it's looking an awful lot like they're going to get sent on their merry way with, thanks for visiting, but don't come back later. And then Burnham decides to invoke T'Kal and Ket, which is this philosophical exercise where she will be forced to defend her hypothesis that the burn did not occur because of SB-19 in front of the Science Institute. So yes, they have to defend their hypothesis in front of the Science Institute. As part of this exercise and defending their hypothesis, they're getting assigned a Shalank Kai. Oh, I love these Vulcan words. Who is also known as a she-set or an advocate. And we find out it's a member of the Qowat Milat, which of course now viewers of Picard.
Lots of crossover from Picard.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. And we know that these are the order of primarily women who are the practitioners of absolute candor, who will, give their, unvarnished view on everything. And the president sort of says, well, there's one member of the order who was particularly interested in being your advocate. Did you guys immediately click to who that was going to be?
No,
I was very blind going into that one.
Yeah, as soon as she said that line, I'm like, there's no way that it's not that. Because who else could it be? Who else knows her, right? And sure enough, it turns out to be Gabrielle Burnham, her mom. It's Michael's mom. And it turns out that part of the reason that she is there is because in going in front of the Science Institute, they are going to basically try and rip her apart. They're going to try and rip Michael apart and go after her character. And this advocate is supposed to be there to support her. More, we'll decide whether or not that's the truth later. So then we get a good scene where the Saru and the president are walking through the ship. He's giving her a little tour, and she is very suspicious of the motivations of the Federation. She doesn't believe that they're there, just purely, with the best of intentions. She, understands, what they're trying to do, and she doesn't like it. And Saru is very, 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 very diplomatic. He's an excellent diplomat in these scenes with the president, where he really is trying to nurture trust, and he really does come across with a real it's sort of gentle nature and diplomacy that is really interesting for his character. Very on character, but also just really interesting to see in that role as captain. He's never had that kind of platform for that kind of stuff. I thought that was really interesting. So, of course, we're now, the reunion between her mom and Michael, and she says, well, you were supposed to go back to Tyr Elysium. Why didn't you go there? She said, actually, no, I crash landed on SF4, and I was actually, saved by the members of Quad Malat. They helped me get back on my feet, and so that's what I decided to join their order. She says that she can sense that Michael is lost, and that she's struggling with where she is, and she reveals to her one of the tenets of the Quat Malat, which is that they take on lost causes, and that in this circumstance, the Federation's case that the burn, they should be given this data to support their hypothesis about the burn, is a lost cause. We are then introduced to this panel of different members of the Navarre Society who are going to represent the different parts. So we've got Niraj, who is a Romulan elder. We've got Vakir, who is a Vulcan purist. And we've got Shira, who is a Romulo-Vulcan, which obviously implies that this is a merging of their two species.
Even though they're technically related already.
Yeah. And we also get a little bit of a reveal here that, the Navarre no longer believe in the good of the many outweighing the needs of the many outweighing the needs of the few. The president basically says, they don't, we've long since learned to get rid of things like axioms, which is pretty remarkable. Obviously, it's been hundreds and hundreds of years, but it's pretty remarkable considering that was sort of one of the central core philosophies of Trek overall, let alone the Vulcans, right?
Mm-hmm. And yet she's having this Quack Malak thing or whatever. She's invoked this ancient right, and
yeah.
Ironically,
for some reason, they decided to have this challenge on the ship as opposed to having it on the planet, which I thought was a bit of a missed opportunity. I think I would have liked to have seen this sort of merged culture on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was I guess I get it. It's cheaper to just put some tiki torches on the
budget cutty kind of thing too, right?
Yeah, it's quite possible. Maybe it was that, or again, it's just a lot cheaper to put a bunch of tiki torches on top of one of the boardrooms as opposed to having them build a whole new set to do that. But I do feel like I wanted to see what this new planet was going to be like. And as advertised, we get a pretty hostile response as this thing gets kicked off. Vakir, the Vulcan purist, is dismissive and says, this is ridiculous. I don't think we should even have this thing. As a matter of fact, I move that we get rid of it. And Niraj, the Romulan, is saying, well, I'm open to hearing what she has to say, because, it would be really nice if we didn't carry this guilt or blame around of having caused this, because it's hard as a society to think that we were responsible for so much death and hardship. And Shira is very suspicious and says, I don't trust your motives. I don't know that I believe, you're here for why you say you're here. So we are really running the gamut, but they have this little sort of quick debate, and in the end they basically say, no, we're not gonna dismiss this off, right off the hop. We are gonna actually have to listen to what she says. We then cut to Tilly and Stamets, and Tilly grabs Stamets and pulls him into the spore driver's seat. What do we call that room? Spore chamber. Mm-hmm. And she says, oh my God, Saru just offered me the position of number one. And he sort of says, really, and she says, well, how would you feel? And he's like, well, that would make you my, commanding officer. And she says, well, but yeah, only in position, not in rank. And she says, well, what do you think about having to take orders from me. And he says, well, to tell you the truth, I think that'd be pretty weird. And, of course, she doesn't really give him a lot of time to process it, and he has to go off and sort of do his own thing again. So we cut back to the hearing, and they're continuing to dress down Michael. Navarre data shows the burn started there. Vakir says, well, why don't you believe? Like, we're telling you this is the truth. We think it's the truth. Why don't you just believe us and go away? And Shira says, well, if you're speaking for the Federation, if you're representing them, I don't trust you, because I think what you're trying to do is get this information so you can basically restart these experiments again and try and use subspace again, and that's what caused it in the first place, and you're going to make things worse. When they're tearing her apart, Michael is trying to defend herself, and then Gabrielle kind of jumps on the bandwagon and saying, I'm here and I'm representing absolute candor. So she brings up the mutiny that leads to the death of Georgiou. She brings up the demotion, which just happened recently, and she starts highlighting all these things and basically pushing her and using this sort of personal information to push Michael out, and make her even more vulnerable, pointing out she's, you're never a Vulcan, you're human through and through, your upbringing left you vulnerable to emotional manipulation, and I think that's what's happened to you now. And, Michael being the hero and being a very smart person, she starts to spin it around. She says, hey, listen, Mom, back off. She said, did the Federation give me a mission and a purpose? Did they give me a home and a family? Did we risk our lives to save the universe? Have I been given...
you, Mom?
Yeah, really. Like, how about you step off, Mom? And, she says, we've got a mandate to solve the biggest problems. That's what our ship is here for. We're fighting for the greater good. And, Gabrielle comes back with, well, why are you struggling with where you belong? Why are you in this quandary about, whether or not you belong with Starfleet? Why are you feeling like this, especially in the wake of last week, right? And she starts to get, emotional and says, I don't know, but, maybe the stakes are just higher. Maybe I'm afraid of doing it wrong. Maybe I'm afraid of losing everyone again. Maybe, I'm not ready for the weight of all this. And she basically...
Is it too early to say I don't believe Burnham for a minute?
Well, we can talk about that a little bit, but the idea is that she then is providing absolute candor. And Vakir says, we want stability and peace. And Shira says, well, we're here to decide based on scientific evidence, not based on what our society wants. And Niraj says, listen, you know what? I'm tired of Vulcans. I'm tired of Vulcans being like this. I think this is the right thing to do. And if the Vulcans won't share the information, Romulans will. And it sort of starts to devolve, and it starts to show the cracks in this very still, hundreds of years later, fraught society that is struggling to hold it together and become one. And Burnham just sort of says, you know what? This is not what my brother would have wanted. He brought you together because you belong together. He wanted this culture to succeed, and I am not going to be the one who drives a wedge between you. And so she withdraws her request. She says, it's not worth it. I'm not doing this. And she says, you know what? We don't need you guys. We will find a different way. We will go. I will keep looking. I will get all the data I can. I will find more black boxes, and I will send the data to Navarre, and maybe someday you'll be convinced. I'll just have so much data that you'll have to agree that I'm right. So we then cut to Gabrielle and Michael, and, we get a real sort of, mother-daughter moment. She says, you don't have to choose between who you are and who you were. She talks about the difference between duty and joy and finding those things that make you happy and the things that, give you comfort. And, she says it's because of that, that you impressed the president, and Tarina has decided to give you the data. You don't need to go through this process. So she hands her...
Yeah, it's interesting, just to interject here, I was looking at the Vulcan woman's, the president face during this part where, Burnham is making her last little speech there. And, Vulcans are, in my book, they're all supposed to be sort of logical and, like not showing any kind of emotion. And she was showing, like the actor was showing a lot of sympathy in her face, I thought,
But then we don't know what her heritage is directly either, right?
Well,
we don't know if she is purely...
It is 900 years in the future
Vulcan.
After all, right, I guess. Yeah.
Well, and again, she theoretically...
But like, you say you telegraph things in the writing. I telegraphed something in the acting. I could tell that was where this was going to go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But again, maybe we're supposed to infer from that, the Vulcans aren't quite the stoics that they were, that maybe there is a slight change. Although we do see from the other character, what was his name? Vakir.
Romulan dude?
Vakir.
Yeah.
Vakir is very much what we're used to seeing from a Vulcan, purely logical, very stoic.
He sounded a lot like the guy who played Tuvok too, right?
Mm-hmm. Tim Russ. Yeah. Yeah. So she gets the data, she's happy, and then her mom reveals I'm not going with you guys. I know I'm human, and I know you've been looking for me, but this is where I belong now. I belong with the Quat Malat, and and she gives her the great line, you don't need me. You're not a lost cause, which is, it's good writing. We cut back to engineering, and Tilly walks through the door, and there we see most of the senior staff standing there, and they one by one tell her, say yes. You should be the number one. Say yes. We'd follow you anywhere, and, Michael comes in behind her, and she says, I really wanted your blessing. And she says, you don't need my blessing. You don't need that. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be here. I'm going to support you, and you be the number one. And so Tilly hikes up her britches and says, all right, here's my first order. You take that data to the science lab, you solve the burn, and you help us rebuild the Federation. Lots of smiles, lots of clapping.
Wait, did we miss the yes part?
Yeah, that's right. Did I miss the part where we all say yes? Damn. And then we cut to Saru and Tarina for a nice little moment where, they clearly have developed a kinship. He has earned her respect, which I think is a really interesting development. And again, the way that he was very measured and very thoughtful and put a really good first foot forward for this reunification. She sort of says, let's keep talking. Let's keep the dialogue between us open. Not just between Navarre and the Federation, but between you and I. And then we finish the episode with Michael back with Book, and he sort of says, well, you're not leaving, are you? And she says, no, I'm not. I belong here. And then the question becomes, well, what about you? What does that mean for you? And he says, I don't know, but you feel like home. So now we're left with the next big question mark, which is, how does Book fit in on a Federation starship?
Right.
The end.
He'll fly the, what do you call that ship on the DS9?
The Defiant?
Defiant. He'll be the Defiant of Discovery.
Yeah.
He'll go off on the pirate missions and stuff.
Again, having seen his bedroom in there now, I'm going to start calling it the Pimp Mobile. That thing is awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
What'd you guys think? Big episode. Lots of stuff.
Yeah, a lot to unpack, like you said. A lot of crossover, sort of Easter eggy kind of thing, between the two. Like not just the Next Generation, not just the last season of Discovery, but also pulling in the Picard stuff. The order of what's the order that with the Absolute Candor.
The Quat Malat. Yeah.
We even had an episode called Absolute Candor in our own show, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the scene, the storyline with Tilly was sort of, that's what I was sort of saying. It was very much like a Lower Decks kind of episode, like the B plot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or C plot, whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't know. It's from a production point of view, I could see why, given the constraints of where we are in this day and age, why they want to try and do things in smaller groups, right?
Mm-hmm.
There were an awful lot of people in that room. They were socially, I don't know if you noticed, but they were all what do you call it, socially distanced in the courtroom there, except for the audience. They seemed to be kind of close together, but everybody was standing respectful, 3 meters apart, so that could have been filmed. They're not filming the current stuff right now in Toronto, are they? They're filming the second half of the season.
They're filming season 4 now in Toronto.
Are they? Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So this is all in the can already.
Oh,
so
yes.
It was all shot before the pandemic, I guess.
Well, I don't know about the timing. Maybe this could have been towards like when we were actually in the bubbles and stuff too. So
yeah. Well, compared to the Enterprise, the deck of the Discovery is very respectably distanced in terms of how people are standing and stuff like that. So
a little insight into the design of the future. Can we build this in a way that is socially distanced?
Yeah. Well, when you think about the starships that we currently have, like the ISS and the capsules that went to the moon and stuff like that, they were pretty cramped in there,
Mm-hmm.
Or even the dragons that go up to the space station now, they're pretty much on top of each other, literally, right? So yeah, I don't know. It's but coming back to the show, show, there was a lot of there's a lot of hoke in there too. I mean, like we were calling Burnham on the fact that, you know, like she's a convicted criminal, she's a mutineer, she's killed people, she's through her action or inaction, she's caused people to die. You know, she's been demoted, she's been promoted, she's been demoted again. You know, so she's an escapee.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of questionable things about her, and you know, I get that we're watching Star Trek and it's supposed to be, you know, there's a whole supposed to be like, you know, the whole prime directive thing that they had in the original series. In this series, you know, we're supposed to take Burnham at her word that, oh, I'm only doing this for the greater good. You know, I don't know. I think, you know, the way people work, I think that she actually is doing this for herself too. Like that's probably her main motivation. Like why, you know, like everybody else in the world seems to be okay with the fact that it was a burn and they don't know how it happened. Why is she so obsessed with, you know, fixing the Enterprise? What is it? He says, you have a messianic drive. He says in the very first scene,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like you want to be the Messiah and you want to be the savior of the whole thing. Like it's funny that it's not called Star Trek Michael Burnham. It's called Star Trek Discovery, right? But it might as well be called Star Trek Michael Burnham because it seems like every single story and every plot in this entire thing has all revolved around her, right?
Yeah.
Like the whole series, the whole 3 seasons so far. You know, we have these other characters who get to have a life, but they're not, you know, we've had the, you know, exposition series shows like the one where Saru goes to his home planet and gets discovered by Georgiou, and, you know, the very first episode where Georgiou and Burnham are together as, you know, captain and number one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so it's, and then we had the whole Christopher Pike thing, but I mean, she's always been the center of the show, right? So, I mean, was that sort of explained to us from the get-go? I can't remember. You remember?
I think it was in the premise of, when they were talking about that this is a little different. It's not from the captain's sort of point of view. It's less of an ensemble and more of a main character. So this episode I thought was kind of interesting in a budget-friendly sort of way of like, we didn't, unlike Trill, which we got to see, we didn't see Navarre. It was like, all right, everybody here in the conference room, just pack them in. But otherwise, I thought there was a missed opportunity to have Jet Reno's Tig Notaro's character have a little bit of cynicism in the say yes thing, to be like, nah, kid, I like you, but, you know, I've got like boils on my feet that are older than you, or, you know, but you know, the rest of the people seem to be going with it, so I guess I'll go with the two, sort of thing, right? It's kind of a very prickly pear kind of personality.
I was waiting for one of them to say no, or okay, sure, you know. But they all did the say yes thing, right?
Yeah, it was sweet. It was, again, Tilly's just such an endearing character.
But practically though, we talked about this last week. Like,
she makes no sense.
Most logical.
Yeah. She makes no sense.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's acting, right? It's like, all right, Saru's like, I really don't know who to choose. I kind of do need somebody I can trust, and he probably suspected there'd be a support system underneath, right? As the first officer, the role is to carry out what the captain needs, right, and to be a little bit of a gut check for the captain. But largely, if captain is on deck, they don't have to make the decisions; they carry them out, right? So it could be safely done. I do think it is kind of riskier. I was betting on Nielsen.
Lieutenant Cancon?
Is what I thought. I was like, Lieutenant unfortunate accident about to happen sort of thing, you know.
Why wouldn't they make Stamets the number one? He sort of seems more senior than all of them, right?
That one I could see, but he's also... there's that, but I was thinking, well, they also need him to be in the spore drive, right? He can't be carrying out the will of the captain when he's the one who like needs to drive the ship.
They could put like a bat pole on the bridge so he could just, you know, slide down the bat pole when he needed to.
Well, I love the goodwill. Obviously, they make a point of having everybody be there so that they can be like, hey, you know, everybody's on board, so that you don't think that there's any ill will. But there's got to be some ill will there. People are. I was going
to say, like in the next one-on-one meeting with Saru, like I'm sure Detmer's going to be going, "What the f, man? Like I landed the ship,
and you did a really good job, and we kind of need somebody with that skill." It's like, dang it, I was too good at my job and pigeonholed.
I just heard Jaime applying for the HR role at Federation headquarters. Listen, we love your work. we're really happy about that not killing everybody when the ship crashed thing, but we're gonna have a bit of a problem here. Yeah, it's it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, they explicitly say it's an interim role, so are we supposed to infer that later this season or down the road, Michael will retake that in an appropriate manner? Tilly will be incapacitated, Michael will help out, whatever. Tilly gets kidnapped, or I'd hate to think they'd kill her off, but who knows?
Yeah, but Michael Burnham is out of control, like in a lot of cases. Like, looking at her from a manager's point of view, like she goes off on these rogue missions, she invokes this archaic Vulcan thing that only she knows about that pisses off an entire nation, like pisses off a whole planet, causes all this added expense of having these, high paid Vulcans come up to the ship, and from that point of view, she's an accident waiting to happen, kind of thing. She's she takes risks.
Yep,
she's risky.
She's the loose cannon.
Yeah, loose cannon. That's the word.
Yeah. I guess we'll see. I mean,
it is a TV show after all, right?
It is. And obviously these things are meant to have their sort of ups and downs, and it's funny. I think this whole thing fell into the same category that we talked about previously. This episode has been at a bit of a breakneck speed. She had this sort of crisis of who she is, and is who she is now after being away from the ship for a year, the same person that she was before, and can she fit back in? They resolved all that again really fast. Like, now we're supposed to be like, and she's good. It's pretty fast. It's pretty fast.
Yeah.
Like, I get that these are short seasons, but yeah, she really went from existential crisis to like, I love it here in like an episode and a half.
They spread out the hold my beer into micro doses throughout the season, I think, instead of saving it all for the end.
Yeah. No big, I honestly didn't find out of this one that I had a lot of sort of, I don't get it or why, or like this one was... It was a satisfying episode. I enjoyed it very much, but again, it didn't really take me anywhere I wasn't expecting to go either. Maybe the Tilly thing, I guess, was the only thing that I was like, how about that? They went there. And I guess the idea that we've sort of resolved the mystery for Mom, although I can't say that was a particularly satisfying payoff.
But did you not find, though, in other episodes of Star Trek that the Vulcans are they're hard to predict what they'll say, and yet when they do say something, it's very logical and makes a lot of reason, behind it. Mind you, we had a Romulan here who was there for sort of to have the sort of explosive, drop the ball, screw it, we'll give you the information, kind of, and then everybody stands up and starts throwing their Klingon ale around, right? Romulan ale, I guess it is. Yeah.
So do we think that there's still brew Romulan ale on Navarre? Or would that be illogical?
Maybe. I don't know. Again, like the whole Romulan, the whole thing about the Romulans was they had the same genetic makeup as Vulcans, but they were very much, bloodthirsty, and like, they were like the Klingons of the Vulcan sort of line or lineage, right? Sarek's children or whatever.
Yeah.
Which we saw that like the Vulcans get real bloodthirsty too. They just suppress it through their whole thing with logic. Like, I thought this whole trial was going to involve like poles with blades on them, sort of thing.
The pun far.
Yeah.
Yes. Pun far.
Yeah, interesting. I don't know. Again, it was satisfying to have gotten some more background, and I think every episode so far has been satisfying in that, the big mystery is, what is the future of this universe that we've been fans of for 50 years? Where does it go, that far flung future and everything else? And
by the same token, though, if you look at our Earth's history, right, 1,000 years ago, we were quite different than we are now.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, we're talking like very different, like in terms of how we believed and how we communicated was like 1,000 years in the future. We're not going to be communicating the way we do now, where everybody has to go to this box and look at a screen and stuff like that. It's going to be unimaginable differances, right?
Yeah.
So 1,000 years in the future of Star Trek, it should be unimaginably different as well, right?
Yeah.
Like nacelles that don't need to be connected to the actual ship and what have you, right?
Yeah.
And instant personal transporters. You just double tap the personal transporter, and away you go, right?
Good deal. Where do I sign up?
Yeah, I thought that the president and Suru were going to start necking at one point there.
Well, I think there was a mild implication of that.
Not applying logic.
I think there was a mild implication that, there was a little chemistry, but I don't know if that was necessarily implied in a romantic sense or just a kindred spirits. We both wear the mantle of leadership kind of kind of deal.
Yeah, mutual respect, I guess. Yeah, like you said in the show. All right, a good episode. I mean,
I will say it might have been a little ballsy to call it Unification 3. It was good. I don't know that it was Unification 1 and 2 good.
Yeah, that's true.
Well,
Unification. So wait, the Spock.
It was a 2-part episode. So it was Unification.
That was 1 and 2.
Yes, that was 1 and 2. Yeah.
Okay, so because I'm thinking like this is like the third unification, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know, because it didn't seem very unified.
No. It seemed like there was some pretty on the surface kind of tensions going on there. It wasn't veiled in any way.
Yeah. And it's funny that the one Vulcan had to sort of say that he was in charge, right? I thought the president was in charge of the proceeding or whatever, right? So
yeah, she didn't even get a front row seat. What are you talking about? They put her in the back corner.
No, I know, but the three Vulcans that came to be the council, right, or whatever they were called, quorum, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And that one of them is the lead guy. They never it's like when you're watching a movie and somebody's verbally explaining what they're doing because what they're doing doesn't make sense on the screen, unless they expose that part of the story, right? You know what I mean? Like when the villain describes how he's going to kill James Bond because that's part of the story that they can't portray in film, Yeah. No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. Anyway, all right, let's move on to our watch lists, and I guess Jaime can go first.
Yeah, I've got a couple here. First one, our household saw the New Mutants because we had a coupon for Redbox. So rather than $1.75, we got to see it for free, and it's near the grocery store that we would frequent anyway. So we watched it. And I think it was. I think it's worth a watch. I don't think it's gonna be top notch. There are some quibbles and issues, but I think they had an interesting concept for how they were trying to do something different with what's essentially the X-Men mythos. Right? It's different characters. It's the New Mutants side of it. They had some ideas.
Is that the one with the girl from Game of Thrones?
Yes, it is.
Maisie?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
and the girl from the chess show you were just watching too.
Oh yeah, I haven't watched the New Mutants yet.
Yeah, it's worth a try. It is kind of weird how it sort of, what was it, Jonathan? Like 3 years after it was supposed to come out, something like that.
It's been sitting in the can since I think 2018, maybe 2018.
Yeah, it's sort of weird from that perspective. I don't know. Even if this had done well, I don't know how they would make a sequel because the gritty atmosphere was just so specific to the location they're in for the movie.
It's a movie, not a show?
That's right. It's a movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought I had to get invested in it to watch it.
No, it's like an hour,
it's a one-off.
Hour and a half, something like that. So not too bad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it was just supposed to be a way initially when it was a Fox property. It was meant to be this sort of way of a new generation. Because again, it's Maisie Williams from Game of Thrones. It's the young man from Stranger Things. It's Anna Taylor-Joy. So it's like all these young, hot sort of Hollywood prospects, and they were sort of putting them in this movie, and they were trying to do sort of a horror movie basically around the X-Men and trying to sort of jumpstart this different post X-Men kind of X-Men verse. But it just became this complete victim of all of its circumstances. There was rumors about reshoots. There was all these different things, and then it got embroiled in the whole, well, how does it fit in with, this acquisition? It's too dark. Disney doesn't like it. And it was a whole backstory about this whole thing. But it is the coda too. It's the last X-Men movie produced pre-Disney merger. So this is sort of the last of the X-verse.
Interesting. All right, cool. So can we talk about ruining your childhoods now?
Depending on the age of...
Doesn't ruin my childhood because this isn't way too old.
Yeah, so we've got the first teaser trailer. It is 19 seconds long for Clifford the Big Red Dog. First look coming out in very late November to December 2021, depending where you are in the country or in the world. I hear not happiness, Tim. So this, for those of you who haven't seen this is the live action style. So they've got the eponymous Clifford, the very large, very red Labrador Retriever, I think he is. up on the screen, and I didn't hear good things out of you, Tim. You ruined your childhood, has it? Not interested in the Clifford Cinematic Universe, the CCU. You heard it here first, where presumably the post credit scenes is Miss Frizzle saying, I like the gumption you've got there, kid. I'm collecting people in my magic school bus, and you're a big red dog. How do you feel about working with a brown bear? And then fade to black.
Yeah. I love the thought you put into this, Jaime.
I spent way too much time trying to say, okay, I think I know what the Scholastic books are, and I had to look it up and make sure. But brown bear,
really?
what do you see is in fact in the same potential universe as Clifford.
The same universe.
I do love the idea of the Scholastiverse. That's I like that.
Yeah, the Scholastiverse.
Oh my goodness, that's great.
So the reason I mentioned it that way is because I saw the clip on the social networks, and then I was just started reading through the comments, and it was like all these people talking about how pretty much, like, I'm paraphrasing, they were all saying their childhoods were being ruined by this Labrador Retriever that's been painted red, or dyed red.
I own a red lab. I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, this is like we're talking red, right? Not fox red. So Jonathan, I think Clifford was a little past your time, right?
Oh no, I read the Clifford books when I was a little boy. Sure, yeah.
And you, Jaime?
Yeah, that's what I was sort of trying to remember, because it's been a very, very long time, and I guess I'm gonna have to pick up a copy somewhere to remind myself from like the library or something. But I mostly remember the plot being, oh no, this dog is too big and causes inconvenience, and it turns out his bigness actually is useful in certain scenarios. What were the books essentially like? I mean, I don't remember the plot being very, very sort of thick and full of twists and turns.
Deep. No, there was no time travel, and
I think that's a pretty succinct summary of the whole franchise. Yeah. Dog big dog bad.
Yeah. It's like the old joke, what's big and red and eats rocks?
A big red rock eater?
A big red rock eater, that's right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I remember that from when I was like grade 3 or something. So we've talked about this before, and this is more related to the original series. They did a lot of the writers would write stories in this. The reason why it was so popular at the time, besides all the hokiness that we see now in it and whatever, and basically every episode has a fight. Every episode has Kirk kissing somebody. There's the play between Kirk and McCoy and Spock, which evolves over time. And the fact that Kirk is the ego and he's the id, and McCoy is the ego and Spock is the superego, right? But a lot of stories that they did, and the skimpy clothing and the racial kissing and the open mouth kissing and stuff like that they put into the show was put in there a lot of times to hide the actual story that the episode was talking about, to hide it from the censors, right? They would do things intentionally to get the censors upset, so they actually sneak a story through. So there's a couple of episodes it's pretty much obvious to us now. There's a couple of episodes around the Vietnam War and how the writers felt about the fact that the Americans shouldn't go and get involved in somebody else's conflict, right? There's a couple of episodes like that. There's an episode where there's a Jack the Ripper plot line where Scotty is basically, every time he's near a woman who ends up dead, he's sitting there with a knife in his hand, kind of thing. But Jack the Ripper is apparently the creep there. There's one from DS9, which I don't think I've seen this episode, which is around what's really at Area 51 in Nevada, and apparently it's a Ferengi shuttle because Quark and Nog and his brother, what's his brother's name again? Stem or something? What's Quark's brother's name? Rom. Yeah, the three of them were out on a thing, and they end up in a time loop, and they end up back in Area 51. There's a couple more. There's episodes about the riots, which they covered in Deep Space Nine as well, like Attica and that kind of stuff. There's episodes about the Troubles, as they call them in England, with the IRA versus the British Army. And there's a episode Anastasia, I think it's called, was a sort of a Next Generation plot line. And let's see, there's like I think I mentioned Attica already. Iran, Iraq. There's shooting down a civilian plane. there's an episode where Worf is sort of accused of knocking down something. Of course, then there's also the fear of machines, where in the 60s people were afraid of computers, and so there's the episode where they install M5 into the Enterprise and they send all the crew away, and just Kirk and Spock and trying to figure this thing out. And so there's lots of parallels between that. But Praxis is an allegory to Chernobyl, and the undiscovered country where the Romulans decide that they want to have peace with the Federation, and they even, I forget the name, Chancellor Gorgon is parallel to Gorbachev, right? Because I think Chernobyl led towards, I think, the sort of softening of Russia and relations with the United States and stuff like that, right? So which is where the parallel in that storyline comes from, right? But I think we probably would have talked about, if we were doing a show about those particular things, we probably would have found those parallels too. But we've mentioned before on the show that a lot of episodes from Star Trek were based in real events, and this is a video that's put together by somebody on YouTube that talks about exactly those things. So cool. Over to you, Jonathan.
Well,
oh yes, the macaroons. Oh, Jaime, put your
Jaime.
sound.
I have not seen the show, and I was like, is this a real thing, or did they just Photoshop something in there and say, hey, this color scheme shows up? I literally don't know. It's not even spoilers because I wasn't sure.
Wow.
All right, well, I'll lay it out here. So spoilers. Sorry, Jaime, we'll try and keep them to a minimum here, but in last week's episode of The Mandalorian, there's a very cute scene where there's a running joke about the fact that the child, or Baby Yoda as he's otherwise known, is always hungry. He's always trying to eat stuff, and at one point he gets left in a classroom, and there's a little boy sitting next to him, and the little boy is eating these blue cookies, and Baby Yoda sort of gives him this, wide-eyed, imploring look, and the kid basically says, no, these are my cookies. And then we see him concentrate really hard, and the cookies just happen to appear in his hand. Next thing you know, there's a shot of him just sitting there eating the cookies. So in the spirit of crossovers, the good folks at Williams-Sonoma have got these cookies now available. So you can go to Williams-Sonoma and you can order the very same Navarro nummies that the child eats in the show. However, this being Williams-Sonoma and everything, I would like you to both, unless you've already taken a look, the cost of
it's incredibly ridiculously
package
high,
of cookies.
Yeah.
This is it.
Well, don't forget it's 50% off tomorrow because of Black Friday, right?
Okay.
5% back if you get their rewards card.
Oh, true.
Otherwise, it is $4 and let's call it 16 cents per macaroon. I calculated out in the summary. It says 12 of them is how many comes in the box.
You get 12 cookies for $50 US.
Yeah.
And then assuming that means delivery is free. It says free shipping on here, so I assume if you're living in the United States, they will send this to you for free. But yeah, basically $4 a cookie for these cookies. How good would a cookie have to be $4 good? And these aren't like giant, like Mrs. Fields giant cookies or something. This is like a little macaroon.
A macaroon, exactly.
And a blue one at that, with blue icing.
Yeah. Well, they sell a lot of Star Wars branded stuff at Williams-Sonoma. You can get the Death Star toaster.
Yeah.
I bought gifts for you for stocking stuffers over the years at Williams-Sonoma.
I think I actually have a set of cookie presses that I got one year. Cookie cutters. Yeah. So I can make like Millennium Falcon cookies and stuff like that. They have come from Williams-Sonoma.
And you can make Death Star ice cubes and
I think I have the Han Solo and carbonite ice cube maker too.
Yes. That may be true.
Yeah. But yeah, so if you feel like you're a big enough fan, or you want to surprise someone who's a big fan of The Mandalorian, the Christmas gift you want to go for this year is the Navarro Nummies macaroons at Williams-Sonoma. We'll have the link in the show notes for that.
So when I was in Hawaii, I bought a pack of Game of Thrones Oreos.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, they had the wolf on them, right?
Yeah, they have the houses on them in the back.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Did you eat them?
I don't know. No, they're still here. They're in my collector's drawer.
I have a box of cereal that I bought back in the 90s when the Blue Jays won the World Series. They did a commemorative Rice Krispies box with Snap, Crackle, Pop and the Blue Jays holding the World Series championship trophy.
Really? Wow.
And I still have that box in my like a Rubbermaid container. But damned if those Rice Krispies aren't still in the box. Yeah.
Wow.
Gross.
I have a can of Spam here as well, but I also have a can of Spamalot Spam.
Nice.
Yeah, as you do.
As you do. Yes, indeed. And the last thing is, this is a little outside of the sci-fi milieu, but there's an excellent program on Showtime in the United States. Here it's available on Crave in Canada. It is a documentary, a 5-part documentary about the Comedy Store, the legendary Los Angeles stand-up comedy venue. And I sat down and started watching it last week. I'm a huge stand-up comedy fan, have been my whole life. And it is made by Mike Binder, who's an actor, a director, a writer, somebody you would recognize if you saw. He was very popular in the 1970s and 80s. He did an HBO series for a few years called Mind of the Married Man. And he has done this, basically, he was one of the regulars there in the 70s, and he's gotten all of these people. It is an incredible number of very famous comedians who have come through there and made their way through that club and then onto The Tonight Show or onto sitcoms. And this place was just a factory for producing, top line talent over the years. This was the home of Richard Pryor, Robin Williams, Chappelle, just name after name after name, Eddie Murphy, Chris Rock. This was where these guys got their comedy chops. And it's it's really, really interesting thing. The first few episodes are talking about how it started. It was originally owned by Pauly Shore's parents, and
really, wow.
His parents split, and his mom basically said, like, all I want is the comedy club because I love these people and I love this place. And she took it and she ran it for the next 35 years. And it was basically her, as Mitzi Shore ran this place. And
really? Wow.
That's where Pauly got started. That's where he rubbed elbows with his stuff. It talks about all this amazing history about the rise of Freddie Prinze, the actor in the 70s, and how that was his club and how he started, and of course his tragic suicide later on, and it's just an absolutely fascinating thing. Jay Leno, David Letterman are on it, talking about their rise through the club, how it was this conduit to the Tonight Show, how Johnny Carson would mention on the show that this performer had been found at the Comedy Store, and so all these people who wanted to be comedians would just migrate to this place and hang out and try and become stars by hanging out there and getting to know people and working on their sets. And
have you seen the show called I'm Dying Up Here?
Yeah. Same idea.
It's same thing. And Goldie is the character there who runs the show. But it sounds very almost, and same thing, conduit to the Tonight Show.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But it just an absolutely fascinating documentary series, and just loaded. Like every living comedian, and even they've got some archive footage of Robin Williams and different people talking about this as well. They've got all this footage from the Tonight Show, and it's just amazing. It's amazing to see all this history that's come through this one place. Highly recommend. Very, very cool, especially if you're a comedy buff. Very, very cool series.
Cool. Yeah, I'll have to watch it. Well, I guess that's it for another week. So, hey, Jonathan, if people want to get in touch with you, where would they find you? I'm
on Twitter and Instagram as @JPK News.
All right. And Jaime, if people want to get in touch with you?
I'm on Twitter as @Dev with the Hair.
All right. My name is Timitra, TIMMITRA on the Twitter machine is where you'll find me. And so until next time, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Spotcast podcast. This is Jean-Luc Picard. Shut up, Wesley. Sorry, say again. Just the tag. Gotcha. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spotcast website at spotcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter @Spotcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpotcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spotcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spotcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
So for the after show, I did watch. I just binged Truth Seekers.
Oh yeah, how'd you like it?
Really interesting. Well, interesting show. I mean, it's interesting. In the UK sort of sensibility to things is quite different than North American. Mind you, I've not really watched a lot of those paranormal shows that you have on cable TV. I assume they're very similar to this sort of thing. But yeah, really well done. I mean, lots of really funny and sort of like each show had its sort of subplot, but it all kind of wrapped into an overarching story, right? So.
Yeah, interesting.
The guy from
interesting the way they use Simon Pegg too. He sort of ties it together, but he's not really featured.
Yes, and I'm a big Kelly MacDonald fan.
I love Kelly MacDonald. Oh my god, I have such a mad crush on Kelly MacDonald.
Yeah. Ever since Trainspotting, right?
Absolutely.
But yeah, so she was a good welcome surprise in there too, and she sort of had the sort of what was it, being John Malkovich kind of thing. Where what's the name of the? Yeah,
she comes off as quite the nutter, right? She's got that weird,
And yet she's not, right? So, and the dude from Mighty Bush, not Noel Fielding, the other guy, as a sort of the villain kind of guy, right? So, and of course Malcolm McDowell is, he's great and everything, right? So,
yeah, it's a good role for him too. Like it's a different sort of thing than we usually see him. He usually plays very, confident and swaggery, and this one he's sort of not that, and the relationship between him and the Nick Frost character is really interesting too, I thought.
And Helen Helen and Elton John are really good too, really good actors, right? So, his real name is
Lionel Richie. Yeah, that's one of the best gags.
And the girl who's the main MacGuffin, I guess we'll call her for now, right? She's a really interesting character too.
Yeah, no, again, it's a strange series. Like I say, it straddles a weird line between there are times when it's genuinely a little creepy.
Yes,
the music I thought was very interesting. The way they play the music in it does.
Yeah, it's very subtle.
It's very subtle, but it's a little unsettling. And there are times where I'd be watching it, 2:00 in the morning, and I'd be like, damn, that's a little creepy. And then there's the whole, then they tell a joke about having to do the spell where they have to drink a glass of urine. It's sort of goofy and nutty, but it's also it's really well done. I thought it was definitely worth making the effort for the first season, and it seems like it's teed up obviously pretty perfectly for a second season. And again, really digestible too. Like each episode's 35 minutes, 30 minutes.
Yeah, and the mix of technology too. Like they even bring in the current cell technology into play, and plus the old wartime radio stuff, and the mix between the analog radio to digital sort of transitions and stuff like that was really 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 well done. And what was the name of the van they drive? Darkside.
Yeah.
Darkside's the van.
Can I drive Darkside? You'll never drive Darkside.
You'll never drive Darkside. Yes, which of course is foreshadowing, right?
Yeah. I mean, you'll have to add that to your list.
Yeah. What channel would he watch that on?
Amazon, right?
Prime. It's Prime.
Yeah.
Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. He can watch that now. He doesn't have to wait.
Yeah. Are you kidding? Jaime's now waiting for his socialized sci-fi to arrive.
I was looking at the Mandalorian. I think if I subscribe on December 15th... Right.
By the time season 3
that means that I'll have to binge to catch up to watch the finale of season 2 with everybody else, and that gives me just enough time to watch WandaVision premiere on January 15th. So that might work. And
then you'll be roped in. You have to come back for that second month.
Right.
Yeah. Then you can watch all the making behind the scenes of stuff from season 1.
Yeah. I mean, so they're like half-hour episodes. So each season is like 4 hours.
Yeah. Oh, I finally got to watch Jojo Rabbit too. Speaking of Taika Waititi, who directs a couple of the shows, right?
Yeah. What'd you think?
That's good. It wasn't what I was expecting from the trailers. Because I think a lot of the trailers made it seem like he's a little Nazi kid and there's the humor, right? But it was not to be. It was quite different. Very enjoyable. Sort of reminded me a bit of Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
His style.
Yeah, I could see that.
That sort of black humorish kind of thing, right? So I love the part where he dispatches with Hitler at the end of the movie, right?
Yeah. No, there's some good. There's some definitely good parts about it. I like like the way it's shot. I've seen a few of Waititi's films, and I enjoy his filmmaking style. I certainly I get what you're going for with a Wes Anderson comparison, although I think Anderson's still a stronger filmmaker just visually.
Oh yeah.
But his sense of humor, his sort of view of the world is, I think, quite enjoyable.
Well, it's a bit Inglourious Bastards too, in that sense. You know, the way it's art directed and filmed and things, right? So
yeah,
it has a good, you know, it's not your typical World War II movie, right? So which, you know, we've had a billion of, right, over the years, right?
Yeah. But again, it's another one. It sort of straddles a strange line, and it's like a little dark at times, especially for a movie starring, you know, one child and starring children.
10-year-old, yeah, exactly.
It goes to some pretty dark places.
Yeah. It's funny, the relationship, and that's just it. I mean, it's almost told from a point of view of a 10-year-old, right? Right, which is sort of, because it's basically the first personal view of him, right? So yeah,
it's good.
Cool stuff. Cool movie. Oh, I did watch Aquaman too.
Yeah.
Finally caught up on that one. It was okay. I mean, you know,
like I said, bag of popcorn, it blows up good.
Yeah. Oh, and Belushi. I watched Belushi. That was a really good movie.
Yeah.
It's a documentary actually about John Belushi's life. Yeah, it's interesting, you know, because I grew up during that whole period of time, right? And I didn't realize like you know, the tension between him and Chevy Chase and all that kind of stuff, and then the rise to stardom through the movies and stuff, and you know, and then his sort of addictive personality, which led to his demise. But yeah, it was interesting, and his sort of tension with Lorne Michaels as well, which, you know, you really didn't get the sense of, right? But but it's really easy to see where the whole Blues Brothers thing came from and that kind of stuff, right? So yeah, it's a good documentary. They talk to all the people who knew him, right? Like his ex-wife, or his wife, I guess, and Dan Aykroyd and all the stars and Lorne Michaels and stuff like that, right? So yeah, it's really well done, and his brother Jim Belushi as well.
Yeah. So Jaime, what are you doing with your long weekend?
I think we're going to try to figure out what we're going to binge, or the HBO Max stuff that we're getting free this weekend. So there's two different schools of thought. There is my school of thought, which is, okay, anything that's a single season is probably better, because then we're not left hanging if the whole purpose is to delay using HBO Max until Wonder Woman arrives, right? So I'm like, all right, well, we could do Watchmen, we could do The Undoing, which means we would have to binge the 5 episodes, I think, that are already out, and then we can watch with everybody else the final episode on Sunday. There are alternative beliefs in the household of like, oh, maybe we should watch Succession, even though I'm like, well, that's 2 seasons. It's kind of hard to binge in one weekend. So we'll see what ends up happening. Westworld, I guess, also qualifies in there because we only have 1 season to catch up on, just season 3.
Yeah, I'd say if you're going to make the effort for any of those things, I would put my highest recommendation behind Watchmen. That was fantastic.
Yeah. I would probably, if you can skip anything, I would skip Westworld.
Okay, good to know.
Have you watched any Westworld, or have you watched
first 2 seasons, but not the 3rd season?
Yeah, I didn't make it all the way through the 3rd season. I have to go back and watch.
Yeah, 3rd season's it's okay. It's not great, but there's some cool stuff, and it does, you know, it comes together a little bit. It kind of meanders, but man, Watchmen is fantastic television, like really top notch.
So is there Crave the same as their HBO?
Yeah, what is on HBO in the States? Not HBO Max, to be fair. We have access to a pretty rich catalog of HBO back catalog stuff, but we don't have some of the exclusives that they put on HBO Max, because they have a broader back catalog down there. But as far as the new, like, the stuff that is like an HBO produced piece of content, we have it all through Crave here, if you have the Crave Plus HBO package.
Yeah. Oh, I did watch the first episode of Moonbase 8. I think you can pass on that one too.
Yeah, that wasn't high on my list.
Yeah, it doesn't hold up against. Well, I mean, even Avenue 5 or whatever is better than that so far. I mean, yeah, it was all right. It wasn't the kind of comedy I was expecting, comedy gold I was expecting from Fred Armisen and what's his name that I can never remember.
Was John Reilly?
John Reilly, yeah, John C. Reilly.
Yeah, that one didn't really inspire me. That was lower on the to-do list.
Have you watched his Dark Materials yet, John?
No, and I saw that season 2 started, and I intended to catch up on season 1, thinking, oh, maybe I'll get into season 2, and now I feel like it's just going to pile up on me. I like a lot of the performers that they the star is the young woman who played the lead in that the last Wolverine movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Daphne Keane.
The young lady?
Daphne Keane, yeah. The what is she? Is like 13, 14.
Yeah, she plays the next. Yeah,
and she was fantastic in that, like a real revelation. So that's enticing. And then what's her name from Ruth Wilson from Luther, right? Is one of the stars, and I love her.
I like her.
I love her a lot. So yeah, it's been on the to watch next list. I actually have it like marked on Crave as watch this. I did actually. I sat down last weekend and I watched Harley Quinn, the Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, or Fabulous Emancipation of the.
Is it worth it?
It's.
Is it a rental?
It's okay. It's okay. It's kind of like Suicide Squad. It's a lot of flash and not a lot of substance.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's shot well, and I'm fully supportive. Again, like she's the star. It's mostly female cast, written by a woman, directed by a woman, produced by Margot Robbie herself. Like I am fully supportive of all those things. That being said, not a great movie. It's good. It's certainly watchable, and the character, like she's fun as that character, but it's just kind of one note over and over again. It's like, well, she's kind of a scumbag, but she's kind of got a good heart, and then it's like, well, she kind of doesn't, and I don't know, it doesn't. It's a premise that doesn't last for an entire film.
Yeah, I watched that I, Tonya movie.
Oh, I like that one. I thought that she was good in that. Really, I loved what's her name from The West Wing?
Yeah, Allison
Janney. Oh my God, she's so good in that movie. Like she won the Oscar for that, right? She won the Best Supporting Actress Oscar for that. But she is wonderful as that monstrous mother of hers.
Yeah. By the way, I'm seeing all these James Bond movies on Crave. Are they all the high res re-resed versions? Or
I don't know. I don't know if Crave offers 4K.
Okay, because I heard that the Bond stuff's all out on Blu-ray now.
It's all out on 4K, and if you have the iTunes version, they're all 4K too. So I know I bought the whole James Bond. I had them on Blu-ray, but I was like, do I upgrade to the 4K? But then 1 week, sometime in the last 6 months, they put them on sale. The whole digital box set. I think it was not a lot, like $70 or $75 or something like that for like 25 movies. It worked out to like $4 a movie or some fool amount like that. And I was like, just done. So I have the whole 4K catalog of those now, and they look amazing.
Is that on the iTunes store?
Yeah, they've got them broken down. You can get like the full box set that has every single movie, or you can get them by actor. So you can get like just the Connerys, or just the Moores, or just the Brosnans, or just the Craigs. You can get just the Timothy Daltons. But by the time you break down the cost,
Star Trek ones where they give you those for free, right?
Yeah, by the time you break down the cost, you're like, well, in for a penny, in for a pound. It's the same thing we talked about with that Star Trek box set, right? Where it's like, it's $20 for 10 movies. You're like, well, I guess I'll own a copy of 1, 3, 5. It's okay. Well, I guess I own those now. I just did that actually this week. They had iTunes has a big sale here in Canada this week where there are a bunch of movies on sale, and my price point is usually about $5 is what I would pay for like a permanent 4K copy of a movie that I can download onto my hard drive and have. And I saw the Beverly Hills Cop movies were in a set, and I was like, I don't really care for the third one, but by the time you break the price down, it's like $15 a movie each, or $15 for all three of them. You're like, well, I guess I own Back to the Future. I own Beverly Hills Cop 3 now.
So where's the sale on iTunes? Is it for Black Friday or just this week? Or?
They've got a big sale. If you go to the movie section on iTunes Canada right now, there's a thing right at the top of the page that has, what does it say? I was just looking at it earlier. Yeah, it's movie extravaganza, limited time prices. They've got like recent releases are under $10, 99-cent rentals, and then they've got like a whole section for 4K movies under $10, box discounted bundles, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, they had a ton of stuff on sale this week. Like Terminator in 4K was $5. I was like, okay, I'd like to see that, and
the original
one. So yeah, there's some good stuff in here for the price point. And again, the digital box sets too. Sometimes you can get movies down to like $3-4 a movie if they have a good box set.
Ooh, Parasite, $10.
Yeah.
Under 10.
Yep. So you're looking for something to do. There you go. You had some iTunes money to burn through, don't you?
I do, but like I look at this stuff and I think, well, if I buy it, that's great, but it's like, $4.99 for Terminator. If I buy it, I can probably find it on one of the streaming services, right?
Yeah, it depends what it is. I tend to look around and sort of see what's available and what I'm more apt to watch in the future or multiple times. So I think the thing that gets lost, and I say this to my friends all the time who are like, oh, I don't know why you have like a physical copy or why you have a downloaded copy of something, because everything's available on a streaming service. Yeah, today, but tomorrow, and as things get more and more fragmented, I mean, we talk about that on this pod all the time, right? Things get more and more fragmented, and then this publisher decides they want to have their own streaming service and they put that on their exclusive thing. Well, there have been times where I've thought, is Netflix worth it, or are all these different services worth it? And there will be movies that I'm going to want to watch irrespective of having those services. So yeah, I think just depends what you're. I mean, the other thing is too, to go buy a 4K Blu-ray nowadays is bloody expensive, like $25-$30 a pop.
Plus you have to go outside to do it.
Well, you can order them, have them delivered too, but it's pretty pricey. And if you're looking at $25 for one of those, or $5 to just have it and play it on your Apple TV, it's a pretty good case.
Is that a category?
Barbarella.
There you go.
Okay, the first Terminator Genesis, that's not a bad one. Tomb Raider, meh. Barbarella, yes. Ghost in the Shell and Eon Flux. I'd rather just buy Barbarella, although I've seen it once. I think you only need to see that movie once.
I think you only need to watch the first 5 minutes once.
Yeah. Yes, that's true.
After that, it's all downhill.
Yes, pretty much. But that and a pair of wings.
Yeah.
Ooh, the Steve McQueen 5 movie collection. What could this be? Le Mans.
I was going to say, it would say Bullet, nope. Le Mans.
No, none of that. Nothing you're thinking. No. So it's like Le Mans is the only good movie in this. The rest are all like whatever.
That's weird.
Yeah, that's why I have Turner Classic Movies, right?
Yeah. Anytime you want to see Steve McQueen, just turn it on.
The Amityville 3.
There's a third one. I knew there was a second Amityville horror.
Yeah, I think they went back and did a remake or something of it. Anyway, I think we should call it.
Yep.
All right.
I can go do some other things, watch some TV, and like that. All right.
Well,
talk to you later.
Hope both of you enjoy your long weekends / vacations, and
yep.
Yeah.
You go to work for us tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll do the duty for everyone. I'll go and
hold down the fort. Sounds good.
You got it.
Okay.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.
Later.